Welcome to another episode of the Boga Hunting Podcast. Back. We've been on hiatus. I've been traveling, and Jared's been, out not losing arrows at archery shoots. And so
that's impressive.
Did you really not lose an?
Didn't lose an arrow. Second year in a row. Granted, I lost an insert.
Okay, but
in a target.
Okay, yeah.
But that doesn't.
Is that because you hit somebody else's crap in there? Or what?
I don't know. It just kind of came out.
Glue comes loose sometimes. I had that with two of my inserts the other day, or outserts, or whatever they are.
That, and I was only up there for a day, and I only shot the Yeti quarters.
And he only took 3 shots total.
I said, I'm not taking this one.
Fast.
Too risky.
I'm passing him up and waiting for him to come in closer.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, responsible.
I took 5 arrows. Came out with 5.
Did you go to TAC?
I didn't actually. I had my wedding reception this weekend.
Oh, right. You got married during COVID.
So in March we had like a small 50-person private wedding, and then we decided we would have a bigger wedding, just a reception in June, and then we actually did it just at my parents' house. We rented a bunch of tents.
Nice.
And then just had people out there instead, and it was a really good turnout. So it was a lot of fun.
Celebrating your love once again, round 2.
Yeah.
Was it as magical this time? Like, did
you get dressed up again? Like, did you set the mood?
No. Thank God, my wife's understanding. She let me just wear a polo and shorts.
Nice. Yeah,
that's
sweet.
I would have died in this heat.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's right.
Because it was hot.
Brutally hot.
Yeah, it was hot. But are you almost as importantly? Are you coming to the Boga shoot off July 10?
I'm thinking about. That is actually like the worst date for me. It's my brother's birthday. I have a bachelor party that weekend, and I have my wife's family get together that weekend.
Yep.
So as soon as I saw it, I was like, you gotta be kidding me. There's no way. I have like 2 things I usually do in the summer, and about 4 of them are on that weekend.
It's from what I can tell, though, bachelor parties are best started at an archery shoot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Family get-togethers are best had at an archery shoot. Because, I'm excited about it. Because, first of all, we met you. That's when we first met you.
Yeah.
At the first, we call this the second annual, but we took a year off. So it's 2 out of 3 because COVID kind of jammed us up last year. But we met you there, got to talking, and that's kind of how we got in touch with you. And I'm especially excited this year because I don't know if you guys can see the hat that I'm wearing here. It's black, but you see what it says on there?
It's got a P on it.
It's Prime. I'm gonna be bringing both my recurve and the new compound. I'm dipping my toes back into the compound water this year, which is exciting.
Yeah, he pretty much is gonna be, how do you say it in a nice way?
Awesome. Really, really accurate.
Lethal again?
Yeah. Oh, wow.
If that's a nice way to say it? I don't know.
Oh, my goodness. No, there's just some hunts that I would like to do with my recurve and some that I'd like to take with my compound, and I'd like to have the choice,
Yeah, that's fine.
I'm bi-vocational.
We had the discussion up at Turkey Camp, man.
There's time and place for everything.
Time and a place.
Even a shotgun. I would, you know what I'm saying? Like, and I'll take a rifle out if it's a legal means and it's fun and it kind of matches what you're trying to do. I took a 30-30 out this past year, shotgun, and a 30-06, and my recurve. So it's not like and a 22. So I'm all over the place.
I mean, basically we whittled down our conversation to we're only out like a couple weeks out of the year on these big trips.
Yeah.
And you want to be successful.
Right. Well, and some trips are like, like say I'm going, I got some plans for some bigger game that's like generally a longer shot. Well, then I want to take the compound, but I got a bear hunt coming up, and a bear hunt with a bait is, seems best over with a recurve, in my opinion.
Yeah. You don't.
And so
yeah, you can't beat that. A bear with a recurve.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Hey, sorry to interrupt right now, but we got to thank a few of these sponsors that help make this show and this type of content possible. So here it is.
First up, HuntWise, our favorite phone app. You can get it on Android. You can get it on iPhone. It's the ultimate sportsman's app. It's got mapping, movement predictions, and social media content. So look them up on your App Store, Google Play, or whatever kind of phone you have.
Vortex Optics is some of the best optics in the world. All right, we use them all the time, not only for hunting, but I actually use it sometimes out on the golf range.
And in the podcast range.
And on the podcast. It's Wisconsin-based, so it's an American company. And also, they make a pretty slick clothing line. So if you want to save yourself 20% off on clothes like this, head over to their website and use the code BOGA20 for 20% off.
And next up is Vector Custom Arrows. It's an arrow company that we really love. Again, they're a Wisconsin company. You basically go to their website, you enter in your bow specs, and they create a custom, perfectly tuned arrow that fits your needs. It's a micro diameter. It's heavy hitting. We shoot them into tons of stuff. We don't break them very much, and they're delivered right to your door. Check them out at vectorcustomarrows.com.
All right, if you didn't know already, we are Michigan guys. So we like partnering with Michigan companies. So we are proud to announce that we are partnering with Prime Archery. And believe it or not, James, you're going to be shooting a compound here.
I'm going to dabble.
He's going to dabble in the wheelie bow again. So we're both actually going to be shooting the Nexus bows that are brand new for 2021.
You're 4. I'm Nexus 4. I'm going to be shooting the Nexus 2.
Yep. So if you guys haven't checked these bows out, go take a look on their website. They're awesome.
Nano grip. Just check it out. The grip stays warm in your hand. Huge deal. I get cold fingers, and I'm a big fan. Looking forward to it.
If you've been paying attention to the podcast and this show, you know that we are big advocates of saddle hunting. And the best saddles that we like to use are the Trophy Line tree saddles. They are top-notch. They fit really well. They're very adjustable. We've actually used quite a bit of them, and we found that Trophy Line is our favorite, mainly because of that. And if you guys think you want to get into the saddle game this year, or if you're looking to upgrade your saddle, head over to their website, and you can save yourself 10% by using the big long code BOGA Hunting TL10.
One word.
One word, 10%. Go get yourself some discounts.
We work with another amazing Michigan company, Bivouac Bow Co., the makers of some of the finest traditional archery equipment that we've had the chance to shoot. I've been loving the mobility and the stability of their backland bow, shooting it for about a year and a half now. Huge fan. It's compact. It shoots like a longer recurve. If you want to get into traditional hunting, if you want to maybe upgrade the traditional setup you have, go to Bivouac Bow Co. Give them a call. Talk to Georgia. Talk to Jim, and they'll hook you up with something pretty special.
We've all kind of been there. A few hard days in the woods. You're going to get a little sore. Things might not be feeling normal. That's where you can actually use something that's a pretty trendy product right now, and that's CBD. It's not cannabis, all right, so you're not going to be feeling all crazy.
It's hard to light.
This is hemp extraction, I believe it is.
It is.
It's
and this is locally sourced, so it's pure and local.
It's pretty much an oil with a dropper. You drop it on your knee and rub it in just like any other ointment.
Or any other body part that might be hurting.
Yikes. But we use it. It helps. You save yourself 10%. Go to their website. 20%.
Yeah, 20%.
20%.
Boga.
Sorry. Boga 20.
And now back to business.
You got to look up here.
And now back to business.
So
He wants that compound so he doesn't injure any animals.
and plus I really like to shoot a compound. Excuse me, did I just agree to that?
It was supposed to be a nice, nice segue into talking.
Oh, that's
about
right.
this.
And
if you were to wound an animal,
if you were to have a marginal shot, or even a good shot, but you were a little concerned about it, you would give Tony a call. And actually, we've had a lot of chit chat. Like, let's dive into what you do, who you are. Why don't you introduce yourself?
So I'm Tony Hill. I'm part of the Michigan Deer Tracking Network, and I run Find a Fred Deer Tracking, which is part of the network where we have around, I think, 50 trackers in our network all over Michigan. We have some in Pennsylvania, Ohio, Wisconsin, just doing their best to sure in deer.
Yeah, you guys. I've got a lot of questions. I'm trying to figure out how to start. How'd you get into it?
just it was actually a spur of the moment thing. My now wife and I decided that we wanted to start. We wanted to get another dog, and I've always loved hounds, and I've always had beagles since I was little. So, and my dad, my dad had kind of a reputation of maybe wounding animals and not finding them. So I decided.
I think everyone has a dad like that.
Yeah. So I decided as soon as it was becoming more popular, I decided that if I was going to get a dog, I might as well combine the two things I love most, bow hunting and dogs, and that I would start deer tracking. And little did I know it would explode into me loving deer tracking just as much as deer hunting. So
that's awesome. Well, and I like that you like your beagle man. You know, Jared and I are beagle men ourselves. We got a dog together in college. $50 each, though. And
was it each? I think it was 25 each. I thought that was just a screaming deal we couldn't pass up. It was basically a newspaper ad. We're like, dude,
this was
$50.
There was no Craigslist at the time.
Yeah, it was newspaper.
It was newspaper ads. We're like, yeah. So we drove out to Jenison or somewhere that way.
Who knows?
And we got him. And Henry was his name. Great dog. Lived to be 12. Ended up moving with me out to New Jersey for law school, and he was a legal beagle. I like to think, because he studied with me. No, he was 12. I was there when they put him down. It was one of the worst days of my life. It was rough.
Yeah, I've been there. Yeah.
Yeah, it was not fun, but he had a good. And now I've got another. He's part beagle, and he's a good dog. He's not so hunt focused though. So he's more of like he'd like to be on your lap a lot of the time, you know. So when you get started and you decide you want to have you want to be a tracker, like, I mean, is that something you start at when they're puppies, or how does the training go?
Yeah. For dogs? So I picked up Fred at 7 weeks, and then as soon as I picked him up, it was introduced to deer hide, deer hooves. At the time, I used beef liver. It's kind of interchangeable. You can use deer liver, beef blood. I've learned through other trackers that as long as you're introducing them to the beef blood, it's same as the deer blood. And then I was lucky enough that I posted on the United Blood Trackers page, which is like our national organization.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I had Brian Alberta, who's from Lost Blood Deer Tracking. He actually came out to my house, provided me with hooves, hide, everything to get started. And then he spent a lot of time helping me. And then Eric Peterson is another tracker.
Yeah.
He mentored me. And then from there, it was, as soon as you started from a puppy, is running tracks, and then going from 10-yard hour age tracks to 500-yard 8-hour age tracks.
Okay.
It was always about keeping the confidence up in the puppy. So you're making sure that you're only increasing one variable at a time, whether that's distance or how old the track is.
How long are they?
So just keeping it fun.
Yeah. How long does it take for these dogs to like really start developing this innate skill? This innate skill for tracking. Is it something like you can see right away that they're like born with it, or is it something you just got to nurture?
I think these hounds are born with it. I mean, it's in their bloodlines for thousands of years. I mean, as soon as I put Fred down, he was going. He kind of just took to it. And I mean, he's any other dog. A lot of people run hounds, or the bloodhounds, the Bavarians, the coon hounds. They all seem to take to their tracking, and then now we're just honing their ability. Instead of the coons or the bears or the coyotes, we're training them to track deer instead.
Right. It's
just introducing them to the whole aspect of cold trailing and keeping it fun. Like, that's half the battle. It's if you don't make it fun for the puppies, you guys, with kids, if kids don't have fun, they don't want to do anything. It's just like a puppy. If he's not having fun, he's not one tracking. So that's the biggest thing when they're young is keep it as just as much fun, whether you're incorporating like playing fetch with the tennis ball that you've wrapped in deer hair. It's just keeping it fun while maintaining the.
Yeah. It's funny because they do take to it naturally. Like Henry tracked probably 5 deer at least for me.
Well, it's the same way he was just talking about. Like we were walking out in the woods. You remember putting him down? Like we had shot a rabbit.
Yeah.
And we were, hanging it. We were holding on to it by its back legs and just letting it like kind of brush up against the weeds as like we're walking back to your cottage.
Yeah. We weren't even really trying. We weren't trying to. We just were carrying a rabbit that we had shot back. Yeah, that's right.
And we let Henry down, and he just took off the other way because he smelled the scent. And we were
losing his mind,
just losing his nuts.
Yeah.
And finally, he got went back almost exactly to the spot where we had shot him.
Yeah.
And started sniffing around again.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
He wasn't refined. You could tell he needed some refinement.
He needed that his whole life.
But you know what? He's one of the boys. And but he would, I had a couple times in rain where he found the deer, and I was shocked that he did. But again, sometimes it would take him a long time, and he would go all over the place, and I feel like he was not refined, So, and when you're training these dogs, you're doing obviously a lot of blood work. It sounds like where you're trailing with blood, but it sounds like you're just getting them in front of or used to or wanting to be around deer parts, right? So you said hooves and hair and stuff.
Yeah.
Is that how that works?
That's the biggest thing. When I first started out, and any new trackers starting out, the best thing for them is getting your buddies and saying, hey, even if you're a deer, you shoot it and it goes 50 yards.
Mm-hmm.
Let me bring my dog out. So it's the real thing. It's a real deer.
Yeah.
Went 50 yards. He gets to experience, for a lot of these puppies, it's the first time they're seeing a real deer usually. And it's just, as soon as Fred saw his first deer, it was a training track. It was like everything kind of clicked that, hey, this is the real prize. And it wasn't until probably the 5th, 6th, 7th deer that we actually found that he realized at the end, hey, this is my reward.
Yeah.
This is what I get. So the first couple, it kind of clicks. And then, so the biggest thing is just exposing them to the tracks, whether that's through deer that are dead from buddies, or that's taking random calls from the public and exposing him to tracks that you may not find. And it's just keeping that drive in the dog to always want that deer at the end.
Mm-hmm. Now you said that dog sees that deer at the end as a reward. Are you giving them something at the end, or you got to be hey, my payment's your deer liver?
I'll usually, dogs are different. So Fred doesn't really once he finds the deer, he'll chew on the entrance or exit hole.
Yeah.
And he'll play with it. But then after that, they kind of lose interest. Now, those little dash hounds and teckles, they love to rip hair.
Interesting. This little fella's going at him.
Yeah, they go absolutely crazy. And then my friend Brian's bloodhound, it could care less. He finds the deer, that's the deer. It did its job, and then we're done. So usually I'll do I'll freeze. I like to keep deer hearts, and then I'll freeze them like jerky.
Yeah.
And then I'll give them, that's the only time he gets that treat is at the end and a reward. And or I might drag the tail or do something like that. So or let them chew on some meat or fat, but we always have to tell the hunter, I won't let them destroy your cape.
Right.
Get his
nothing's going to happen to your deer. I'm not going to let them chew on the head or the horns or anything like that. So that's the biggest thing.
Henry was a big fan of several times. Well, this started the first time I didn't know he was
never put a trophy next to Henry.
He went and he ate the lungs. And I'm not, when I say, because he's a beagle, and if anybody's had beagles, food driven, and when they get food, they're and they just inhale it in. And I look over and he ate a lung in 2 seconds, and he pooped pink like pink lung for like just like it with it, but he loved the lungs.
That's how he got his third win.
That's right. That's why, man. He was. So it was funny. Like, and then afterwards, I did the same thing. If you ever found a deer, like, man, you're part of it. I got to give you some cut of it.
See, when Henry lived with me back when he was a pup, he ate all my sheds.
Did he really?
Every shed I had with me, he would just gnaw on it, and he ate your turkey tail.
Yeah,
one turkey that you had.
I had this great mount. I finally did the thing where you salt it and you like spread out the mount. I think I've told this story before. It was like my first time ever like making it nice, and I was gonna put a plaque and I was gonna hang it on the wall of my house. I put it in a bowl and salt, closed the door, walked out. I closed either I left it open or I closed them in with it. And I didn't know. And all of a sudden I walked back in, and of course he ripped it apart. Poof. And then he ate the salt, which made him puke. So it's just like dog puke, feathers everywhere. I walk in like, what the horror scene, is this? But
nope, just Hank.
Yeah, just Hank. Hurricane Henry.
Yep.
Who was rebranded later on in life. My daughter read a book where the dog's name was Rover. And so for the last like 2 years of his life, he was he switched. He was Rover.
Not to me.
No, not to me either. I wouldn't do it. So, no, that's cool. And it's interesting to know, as we hear about this, just how much work goes into training these dogs. Like you mentioned, 7 weeks, you're getting started with them. Is this something you're doing daily? Is this weekly? How often is this?
Usually it's training is in the winter kind of slows down, and then during the season we don't really do any training just because we're so busy, but
right.
I like to get some done. I like to get some training in usually December to January before the snow, and then once the snow melts, it's on again. Like this weekend we actually had the Tracking Network had their scent work. They had a huge people. There's trackers from Texas, South Carolina, Oklahoma, Georgia, Illinois. Like we had a huge event where trackers came to test their dogs, and one of my friends, Alex, was testing. So I got up Friday morning at 5 a.m., laid him a track, practice track, so he could run it at 10 a.m. before he tested on Saturday. So this is something where we're working year round with each other. Usually, a lot of us, because it's laying tracks for yourself. You sometimes you cheat without knowing. Like,
sure,
you may hold the leash a certain way, or you may guide your dog in a certain way, but you will never know it until you bring somebody else out with you. So I like to do tracks with other people in the network, so it allows you to, they observe how you handle your dog and the things that you need to do to improve. And then it allows you to, you're not cheating in a sense, because once you lay the track, you know where the turns are, you know where the things are. And then some days if your dog's struggling, you maybe just nudge that leash a little bit and he sees it. So we do a lot of tracks together. The hardest part is it's a 2-part system. So I have to lay a track on Monday, and then however long you want to age it, give maybe 10 hours, 24 hours, 7 hours, you have to find time to run it.
Sure, right.
So not only are you laying it, you have to go back and find the time of day to run the track after, and when the conditions are right. And that's usually the hardest part is, okay, I laid the track, now you get busy, or somebody needs something, or the weather changes drastically, or the wind shifts, and then the wind shifting could almost ruin an entire track. So it's a lot of work to run tracks all year, but it's what you need to do to keep your dogs in shape.
How long does it take to lay down a track? Are you just literally dragging something bloody through the woods, or what does that look like?
So I have tracking shoes from the United Blood Trackers, and so it's basically I have a pair of plastic shoes, and then you put a hoof in the back and the hoof sits under the shoe like your lacrosse boots, and then the weight of your foot presses down that hoof and the interdigital gland into the ground, and that's the scent that the dog's tracking. So
Really?
I basically walk through the woods with boots on and lay the track, and then once I'm done, sometimes I'll leave the boots at the end, or I'll have a set of hooves and usually a little piece of fur, like just 10 by 10 or small little piece of fur, and then I'll leave that at the end, but it's always all from the same deer, so that you're not, if you use two hooves from each different deer, it'll confuse the dog.
Sure.
They each have an individual scent.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm using 2 hooves. I'll walk, and I'm usually a couple 90-degree turns, maybe a teeny little backtrack, or we'll make wound beds. So the dog has to realize, because we deal a lot with wound beds with gut shot deer, liver shot deer, where a lot of hunters track too soon and then they jump the deer.
Yeah.
So wound beds are huge for us, as we can usually gauge. We see what blood they left in the bed, where you can see where on the body the deer is bleeding just by seeing where it's laying in the bed. So those are usually huge, and it's really advantageous for us to be able to find those wound beds. So I like to create mock wound beds. We do basically
actually, let me jump in there a second. Anything you can
do with deer, I'll do that too.
Yeah, like just for people who are listening, I'm realizing wound beds. You shoot a deer. Ideally, what you want to happen is you shoot it. It goes a little ways and it lays down and makes a bed, and hopefully, ideally, bleeds out in their bed, laying there. But what you're referring to, Tony, is sometimes you shoot a deer, you're all excited about it. You go in before that deer has had a chance to expire. You get him up out of his bed, and he goes and another, half a mile sometimes, like a long ways on occasion. And so for you to find that is critical. First of all, you can see what type of blood is in it and stuff, but it also gives you a sense of how long you got to wait and so on as well, right? Am I getting that right?
Yeah, it gives us a sense of what we're dealing with, and usually it allows us to gauge how hurt the animal is. Like if it's bedding once every 10 yards, if it got up and then it's bedding again, usually that means they're significantly wounded. I mean, if it can't keep going, and then it just gives us an idea of what kind of wound we're dealing with. If there's a lot of blood in the wound, if there's just a teeny little spot, or sometimes a lot with gut shots, it may be just green, like intestinal fluid or bile, things like that we're dealing with. Or during gun season, it could be chunks of bone from a leg hit. So finding those wound beds sometimes is critical in allowing us to judge whether we keep going and we need to keep pushing the deer, or we need to back out, give the deer time, whether the blood is fresh and wet, or it's frozen over, or it's dry. So those can be critical in determining whether or not you decide to back out and give the deer a little bit more time, or you're going to decide to keep pushing and try and recover the deer.
Yeah. All right. So walk me through how this works. Say I'm a member of the general public. I'm out hunting
with a recurve.
With a recurve, and I put a marginal. put a marginal hit on a deer. How do I get a hold of you? Like, are there fees, and when do I call you? Do I look for the deer first, or how does that what's the best way to go about doing this?
So everyone pretty much has their own Facebook page.
Okay.
Mine's Find It Fred. There's if you go on the Michigan Deer Tracking Network is usually the most important. At the beginning of the year, we have a sheet where it lists county by county every single tracker in the county, their phone numbers, and that list comes out usually I think around like September maybe, or August. So right before deer season starts, and then it's a complete list county by county, phone numbers for everybody, and every single dog on that list has either passed a UBT certification or one of the veteran trackers in the group has tested that dog, so that you're not getting a dog that hasn't been at least
like vetted
on a deer or proven that it can track a deer.
Yeah.
Because with tracking becoming more popular, it's kind of exploded in the last couple of years. You're not always certain whether the person you're calling out their dog is actually tracking the deer. And then each individual tracker sets their own rate. So the past 2 years, my tracks have been for donations.
Okay.
Whether it's whatever you think what I did for you is acceptable. And some trackers have a certain rate. Some trackers do it if they recover your deer. There's an extra set fee. It's really 100% up to the trackers, and we don't discuss that. It's kind of like one of those things where it's completely up to the individual person and how they see fit. And I generally will travel an hour from Grand Rapids. So I've driven all the way up to Leroy in a day.
Oh, wow.
And I've driven as far south as down by like Shelbyville.
Okay.
So
that's right.
it all depends, but yeah. So being in the network is actually huge because say I get a track down by you, Jared, in Shelbyville. I know I have another tracker that's closer, and I'll call him and say, hey, are you busy and can you run this? Or would it be better for me to run it? Because our schedules during the rut and during deer season fill up so fast. And that's kind of a hard thing for people to understand is like so November 7th last year I think it was my busiest day. And I had over 30 phone calls in just one day.
Like, you know what? November 7th was my best day of hunting last year.
Yeah.
Both in what I saw and then driving around, I saw like around my old neighborhood, like 3 different bucks chasing. And I saw one, I was parked on the side of the road and watched a buck chase a doe literally right past my car. The 7th was hot last year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I found it's actually like I kind of keep a log of like my busiest tracking days. So that's when I know that's the heaviest deer movement because I get 20 phone calls.
Hook us up on those.
Yeah, give us some of that data. We're data guys, you know.
Because some days I may get 1 or 2 calls and I'll run them both. And then there's days where I might get 6 or 7 calls. And then once around Halloween.
Yeah, sure.
Halloween to November 15th, you're getting anywhere from 1 to 10 calls. Some guys are getting up to 100. Like,
yeah, unreal.
And then usually it's we'll talk. So like everybody knows we talk to each other, and sometimes so we know like, hey, I'm going here and I'm going here, and to make sure that tracks are getting covered. And sometimes we are honestly too busy and we can't cover them all, so we have to go with the tracks that we believe will give us the highest chance of recovery.
Yeah, because you're looking out you want to keep your reputation high, and you don't want to. I'm sure you get like a lot of guys who have terrible shots on deer, and they're calling you in to like check you. They shot them in the butt or something, and they want you to come in and find this deer for them.
I deal with everything. I have guys that will call me out that, hey, I may have missed this giant 160-inch deer, but will you come out and just make sure? Or I tracked it 100 yards with blood, and I don't think we're going to find it, but I just want to be absolutely certain that I don't leave a dead deer out there.
Mm-hmm. You can't blame them.
Then I get a call. Hey, I know I made a perfect shot and I can't find any blood. Like I tracked a deer for my uncle this year. He's like, I made a perfect shot. I can't find any blood. And then we tracked his deer 100 yards. He made a perfect shot. We never found a drop of blood. So it's sometimes you deal with, hey, I made a perfect shot, but there's no blood. It's dark. I could grid search. I could mess up the whole area, or you call me in, I find it in 5 minutes. There's one line of scent into the deer and one line of scent out. You're not spreading scent all over, and we're out in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So those are, you name a deer shot, and I've probably taken a call for it at some point.
I've got a great deer shot story, and it's self-deprecating story. I was out
big words
when I was young, and I was one of my first years with a rifle, and I was posted up in this like group of pines, right? It was right on the knoll. Everybody who I've ever hunted with up north knows the knoll was like fine. I mean, everybody hunted there, and you'd see some does occasionally, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm up there. These does come right in, like sweet. I got all this pine in the way I shoot, and I see the tree pop in front of me, and I'm like, I still think I hit him. And so I see her run off, and I had shot her in the elbow, like the bullet got hit low, and I'm like feeling horrible. Like, I cannot believe I just did that. I had practiced and was all ready. So for the rest of the day, it was a nice layer of snow on the ground. I tracked that deer with only one leg, found it, shot it, and got it. The interesting part, though, was I had convinced my cousin to come help me. And he's like, all right, I'll come help you. And he was kind of a guy who was like, always knew, what to do. He knew best. He's older than me. So I was like, I'll help you. I'll show you what to do. So I'm tracking. He's always behind me. We finally get to a clearing. I'm like, all right, we got the deer up there. He's like, where? Well, let me see. He walks up and just shoots my deer. Which I'm like, what the heck? First of all, is
his name Ryan with Gyno?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. He shoots it. I'm kind of mad. I'm like, this is my deer. And secondly, he shoots it on the ice, and it was not far into the season, so the ice was thin. I'm like, how am I supposed to get this deer who wandered out on the ice out there? So I was headed back to get my plan was to get ropes and like a tube, like a boat tube, and just slide out there. And if I fall on somebody, can just reel me in. Well, my brother had heard about this, my younger brother, who at the time was smaller than me. He's bigger than me now. And he and my other cousin just walked out and grabbed it in the meantime, like without just like, oh, I thought we would help and grab the deer. So like everybody did my work for me, but I found that deer that was a leg shot. So worst shot I've ever had that actually connected on a deer, but we did find it. Because that when you hit him in the elbow, it's not pretty. It's like looks like lasagna down there. So, the way as I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking about this upcoming season. I'm like, man, I would hate to have this marginal shot, but if it happens, I want to make sure before I call you that I'm doing the right things to make sure that I'm giving you the best chance of success. So, say I make a shot. And I'm not sure. How soon do I call you? Do I look? Do I not want to mess up the scent? Well, how does that work best?
Or what's some information that you want to know to help you make?
Yeah, how do we make it easier? Help us help you.
Yeah. Okay. So the very first thing is usually I like to at least after we shoot a deer, we're giving it an hour. I mean, just an hour. So because you don't know how far that deer went before I bedded down. That deer could have ran 50 yards and bedded down. That deer could have ran 20 yards and bedded down if you can't see it, unless you watched it walk away and it's gone or ran away. And then the most information is usually from the arrow. A picture of the arrow, a picture of the shot site, a hit site, the blood, any smell coming from the arrow, any hair you may see, any specks of blood or stomach or just anything that you see at the hit site. And then I usually send out, we have I'm sure you've seen it, the grids, the deer with the grid on it. Yeah. And I'll send that and I'll say, hey, where do you think you hit it? Because I've dealt with people that say they hit it in the chest or perfect shot and it ends up being a gut shot. And then the next most important thing is, what did the deer do after you shot it? Did it tuck its tail and walk away and then stop and then look around and then slowly walk away? Or did it full sprint gone? out of the country. So that's one of the what is the deer doing after you shot it? So say the deer walks away. You shot it, it hunches up, it walks away slowly. It looks kind of drunk or sick, maybe.
Jared,
that
was
would be a
walking
time
like a Jared
where
in college, drunk and sick.
So that would be a time I would say, hey, let's at least give that deer 6 to 12 hours. There's no reason to push that deer. We like to say dead deer don't run.
Sure.
So
I like that.
if that deer, if the deer dies in its first bed, it's usually going under 500 yards.
Yeah.
But the second you jump that deer and get that adrenaline going again, and then not only are you getting the adrenaline going again, the line of scent for, say, you're worried about coyotes eating your deer.
Yeah.
If that deer only goes 200 yards from your tree stand, beds down and dies, the coyotes aren't going to find it as well as if you jump it 3 or 4 times and now that gut shot deer just ran across all 160 acres or a whole section.
Right.
Now it's way easier for a coyote to walking through the woods to pick up that gut shot deer, and there goes your deer.
Yep.
So the biggest thing is just patience. It's so hard to do, and it's so
Terrible
hard.
at it.
Being a hunter, I understand. Like, that's what you want to do. You want to go find your deer, like, you know. But and I've made that mistake. I made that mistake this year with my dad's deer. After he shot it, we jumped it after 150 yards. So I was like, all right, we'll come back tomorrow. We come back tomorrow in the morning, and then that started to rain. So I put Fred down, and we had no blood. The rain had washed everything away. And we go to where we think we last jumped the deer.
Yeah.
And then Fred blows past that, and we come to another deer that we could see in the morning. It was still a little dark. We could see it. And I was like, and Fred, when he sees a deer, he starts barking like a coonhound, going crazy. So I was like, so I do it. We restart at the hit site. I go back again. And then Fred takes me another way and goes back to a 2-track that we had driven in on and crosses it. And then he's still kind of like milling around. He hasn't really figured it out. Yeah. So I'm like, all right, I'll try it again. And this track was from my dad. He was getting really discouraged. He gets the shakes, the yips really bad.
Oh,
so
sure. Yeah. So does Jared, though.
He kind of, So he kind of forgets everything and just.
Yeah.
So he was getting really sad and really discouraged. I was like, yeah. But I'm like, Dad, we're gonna find this deer. Like, we're gonna find it. So eventually, I put Fred down the third time, and I'm like, he brings me the same path. So I'm like, Dad, this deer definitely went this way. He brings me the same exact spot. We cross the 2-track again. And then we go about 150 more yards, and we come up on the deer. And it's bedded down. It was still alive at this point, barely. So we had to dispatch the deer again. Since I'm certified through the UBT and the Michigan DNR, we're able to dispatch the deer. So we dispatched the deer, and then the celebration begins. But that track, if I would have waited, and we were at deer camp, I was excited. My cousins were there. My dad was there. My dad shot the first deer at deer camp.
Yeah.
He thought he made a better shot than he did. And it turns out after what would have been a 50-yard track where the deer was bedded down, where it would have died.
Yeah.
Instead turned into an 800-yard track.
Oh, man.
Jeez.
Yeah. So it's once you kick those deer up after you jump them out of bed, they usually run till they can't run anymore, or do they get back to a place they feel safe. So it's one of those things where understand it's super hard, but it's just, and I'm trying to develop that more myself, is just patience after the shot, patience.
Well, so much of hunting is patience.
You're
sitting there, staying in your, I've had it where I got up too early, and wanted to move around. It's like if I would have stayed 15 more minutes, that, the tracks of the buck went under my stand or whatever.
That's right.
Or, you go to a great example was last year, my brother-in-law, I was hunting with him, and he shot a buck and went after it too early. And he, so we're like, he calls me. He's like, I went looking for it. I think I kicked it up. I'm like, shoot. We wait. I'm like, hey, you gotta come back. And of course, like after you bump it once, it's kind of iffy. And then of course it starts pouring rain. And we looked, we grid searched. I mean, we couldn't find it. But like you said, if we would have been patient, I think that deer would have been done, like you said, within a couple hundred yards.
And it's so hard because how many opportunities do we get to shoot a deer a year? And it's
right.
You're one chance, and then you're like, so that's become a thing. Like, you only get so many opportunities, so you got to make them count. So it's becoming more patient, and I've learned a lot through angles of tracking and seeing so many deer tracks and shot deer.
Yeah.
Just doing the autopsy, you say, after we see what killed the deer, and it's like it gives me an extra. Now that I'm hunting, I take an extra second or two to make sure I'm making the best shot possible. Because
exactly. You know the back
I
end
know
of it.
how quick a deer can drop or move.
Yeah, yeah, that's funny how that is. You think more about it when you see it. Like I'm sure if you're getting 30 calls in a day or whatever, you see it a lot. I'm actually really interested in your shoes. I need those just to throw people off. Like I want to start leaving some tracks, some deer tracks. Whoa, man, they're just tearing this place up, and I can just because last year I've shared on the podcast, I just struggled with other hunters jamming me up in my great spots.
Yeah.
Especially like last year, especially was bad. And I feel like with those shoes, you give me an afternoon with those shoes, I'm clearing my spots right up. I'm making scrapes, man. But I want some buck print like a half a football.
Well, you gotta
size.
kill one that big first.
Yeah.
Well, you gotta be able to get the hooves.
That's true. I find an elk or something.
There you
go. You can get roadkill, last resort.
Exactly.
I don't.
That thing.
It's funny you say that. I was driving home. So this last couple of weeks, I've been camping with my family, and we've been talking about getting these beetles. That we're talking about getting them again. My wife really wants to get these dermisted beetles, and which means
I wouldn't hate it.
You wouldn't hate it, right? It would be nice. And I told her now that we're building a new place that garage is detached. I feel better about having beetles in the garage if it's not attached to my house. And so I've started to accumulate some things that I found in the woods in my freezer for when these beetles come. I've got a scarlet tanager right now, found it dead.
Nice.
No, not a scarlet, grosbeak. Anyways, but we're driving back and I see this badger on the side of the road. It was getting late though. I was trying to get it. She's like, "You cannot turn around. We got to make it. We had to make it. We took the ferry across Michigan, parked the wagon, and floated across."
Oh, Wolverine.
Yeah. No, it was the Lake Express. Anyways, so we were in a hurry, but man, it's been eating me. There's a badger I saw that would be awesome to have a skull.
It would be cool.
So anyways, so Fred, like, we're in the summer now, but one of the reasons why I want to talk to you is people need this information because going into the season, somebody that will listen to this podcast will have an issue, and so I want that information to be in front of them as soon as possible. So like as you're practicing and as people are thinking through it, I want to make sure that they know where to find you. How can they find a Fred? How can they follow the stuff that you're doing? How can they learn more and then maybe have your contact information so that should something go south, they got a guy who can call. They can call. You're muted. Don't worry, we edited them, so it's totally fine. Hang on, I wonder if I can unmute you.
Here we go.
There it is.
There you go.
There we go. Something must have happened.
No worries.
So Find a Fred is on Facebook and Instagram. And then the most important thing for everybody in Michigan is Facebook, the Michigan Deer Tracking Network. That way, when the list comes out in September, August, we publish it every year, and we pass it to Michigan Whitetail Pursuit, all of the hunting pages on Facebook, whether that's like the Michigan Hunting Nation, Michigan deer hunters, let them go, let them grow. Like all of those pages.
Boga hunting.
Boga hunting this year. You should start with
Yeah,
us. 'Cause we'll
boga
start for you.
So I will personally post our tracking list to Boga Hunting, and then it will give a county by county description of each tracker, their phone number, and then one thing I recommend is like give me a call before the season and just say, hey, this is John. I live here. I may not need you, but hey,
Let's connect. Yeah.
Developing a relationship with somebody. Or you'd be surprised how many calls we take where I just give hunters advice, or some of the more veteran trackers just give hunters advice where they're saying, here's the situation, this is what you should do. And whether it's us sending us a picture and I'll go, yeah, that deer's dead, but you still need to give it 4 hours.
Yeah.
Or that deer's going to be dead, go in the morning, and if it's not within the first 200 yards, give me a call and I'll come out.
Sure.
So sometimes it's just us giving advice to hunters and passing that information along. I know Rob Miller, he's probably the most veteran tracker in Michigan, and we're blessed to have him part of our group. And he posts a lot of information on his Facebook page, and it gives tons of breakdowns of shots, blood, hair, what you think. He'll post a picture of blood, and then he will say, what do you think happened? And then at the end, he'll post, I mean, he's got 10, 15 years experience.
Yeah.
That's thousands of tracks. So it's
awesome.
You can't beat that kind of knowledge. So that's where I sometimes go for information. Other trackers go for information. United Blood Trackers has a nationwide list of trackers by state. So if you go to their website, they have a breakdown of, say you guys decide to go out to Wyoming elk hunting or Colorado elk hunting, and you wound an elk.
Yeah.
Well, this past year, Eric Peterson was out in South Dakota or North Dakota, and he was out tracking elk, and he ended up tracking a huge, like 6x6, like with his dog Peekaboo, and they ended up finding a giant elk.
Great dog name, by the way.
So it's literally a nationwide thing where if you're traveling anywhere in the country, there's a detailed list of trackers and their phone numbers, and it breaks down. Because my brother ended up wounding an elk this year in Colorado, and he's like, "Dude, I'm gonna call you." He's like, "How much is a flight?" I was like, "I don't know if I can get Fred on an airplane." So it's
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool.
But we do have trackers that are traveling.
Yeah,
They're traveling everywhere.
Yeah.
Indiana, Ohio.
Awesome.
It
the
seems like
UP.
it's growing fast.
So it's
for a while, it's like you just never heard of it, and some states like frowned on it, and which was ridiculous to me. But now it's like you hear of it all the time, and it makes total sense.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I think this year, just our Michigan Deer Tracking Network, I think we have around 50 members, and we have some people that are in Pennsylvania that don't have the pleasure of the network. I mean,
yeah,
network is probably one of the best organizations like in the country.
Yeah,
just getting together, making sure that we're doing what's best for deer tracking in Michigan.
That's cool.
Making sure that dogs are tested, that when you guys call, you're getting the best available. So the work that the veteran trackers like Brian Dagan, Ken Jordan, Eric Peterson, Richard Martin, that they're doing, that has kind of made the learning curve for me go from a little baby to 10 years experience right away. They cut the learning curve for everybody. And it's people like that are giving back to tracking, that are making the difference for tracking in Michigan.
Yeah,
so
that's a big deal.
It's pretty awesome that we have such an awesome group of trackers in Michigan that are willing to give back. And that is the reason we had, I think, 1,000 recoveries this year, or right around 1,000 recoveries total.
Yeah. People that are like eating venison right now because of you, you know?
Yeah, it's pretty incredible to see the amount of work and dedication that these people have for the public. I mean, it's for other hunters, and it's for when I've seen grown men cry, and a lot of us have seen grown men cry.
Oh yeah.
All hope is lost. I mean, you go from the highest of highs to the lowest of lows, and then all of a sudden you find that buck for them. Yeah. And man, the amount of hugs I've gotten from grown men after I found their deer it's
pretty cool.
That's cool.
It's pretty awesome to just see the smile on their face.
Because that's like the most tense moment for me, at least, of a hunt, is after you shoot and before you found it. I'm like
sleepless nights,
and you're just on edge, and you're just doubting everything, and it's so to take that away and give some peace of mind, and just to help people find more deer than they would have without is a huge deal. Although great dog name for a tracker, Waldo. Like, where's Waldo kind of thing, right? Anyways, we're ending here. So everybody check out Find It Fred. Tony, thank you for coming on. We'll be in touch, and hopefully, I don't know, hopefully we get to call you, or hopefully not. I don't know how that works. I mean, we'll hopefully get to send you a picture of a monster buck that we shot without needing a tracker.
Yeah, or if you guys just want to have fun and you just want to see a dog work, or if you want to just see you make a perfect shot and you just want to see it work, give us a call. I'll gladly come out. We'll just do a little demonstration, just quick, just so you guys can see, because it's truly amazing thing to see when the dogs take a scent.
Let's do that.
It's definitely got me hooked.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you again, man, for coming on. Appreciate it. Say hi to the wife and to Fred for us, and have a good one.
Yeah, have a good one, guys. Thanks.